Welcome back to Opinion Journal. I'm Mary Kissel. President Obama, flanked by children, announced 23 executive actions yesterday and a raft of initiatives that Congress needs to approve. What do you make of all this? Well, New York Post editorial writer Robert George is joining me now to explain this flurry of activity.
Right.
Robert, what a potpourri of measures. What's the most important thing he's trying to do?
Well,
does he know?
If I was cynical, I would say the most important thing that he's trying to do is show that he's doing something. And most I know a number of Republicans or other are concerned about that he's doing these executive orders and he's trying to get around the Second Amendment and so forth. Most of there are political reasons for concern about some of them here and there, particularly those that almost combine the gun control issue with Obamacare in terms of giving directives to doctors to ask about violent guns in the home and things like that. But I think generally speaking, most of these actions that they're asking, that he's kind of have more to do with sort of information tracking in terms of where guns are going, guns are being used, and so forth. One of them is like appointing an ATF director, which should have happened years ago. There hasn't been one since 2006. But ultimately, the issues that most of those on the side of gun control want to focus on are things like assault weapons. And even after Newtown, depending on how you phrase the question, it's mixed even among the public as to whether assault weapons.
Oh, it sure is. Let's
put
up some of these polls
right.
while we're talking. Do gun laws reduce violence? No, 61%. Right. Poll cause of gun violence, availability of guns, 23%.
And remarkably enough, even though it was mocked at the time, the NRA's idea about putting armed guards in schools actually has very broad support amongst the public, which, by the way, because of that, I was frankly one of the people that was aghast at the NRA's ad, because on a lot of these issues, even though the mainstream media tends to put them being on the defensive, the NRA is, if they're not necessarily winning the overall argument, they are definitely in there, and the public is receptive to what they're saying, which is why I thought it was foolish for them to put this ad up saying, well, you know, the president's daughters have guards around them. So why don't why doesn't the average, why don't all the schools? It's silly to, and this is, by the way, something that conservative grassroots, I think, has been happening last year into the campaign. They're winning on the arguments, but they unnecessarily personalize it against the president, making it looking like it's personal against him. Stick with the facts, stick with where you are, and ultimately, I think something that has constitutional action, the public will listen to you.
Although the president does tend to take his own politics very, very personally. Let's. I'm opening up a can of worms
all
here.
Politicians do. That's
okay.
True.
Well,
That's true.
Let's talk a little bit about personalities in Congress. How is Congress reacting to these initiatives?
Well, this is the other thing. This again is a reason why I think the NRA should have more of a softer hand on this. Before the president came out with his proposals, Harry Reid, the Senate Majority Leader,
says he can't get done.
He said even though he has two more Democratic senators, he doesn't expect to be able to get an assault weapons restriction through the Senate. If it's not going to get through this, it's going to get through the Senate. It's certainly not going to go through the House, because even some of the new senators in there, like Heidi Heitkamp from North Dakota, that's a very gun-friendly state, and she's made it very, very clear. She knows her constituents, and she's made it very, very clear that she's not in any rush to have these restrictions.
So then, did Boehner and the GOP do the right thing by saying, well, we're just going to let the Senate pass stuff, and good luck to you, and once you pass it, send it back to us, and we'll think about it?
I think John Boehner has realized that he can actually use what happened with the fiscal cliff on other issues to his advantage. There'll be a couple of cases here and there where there'll be certain fiscal things that will get through partly by Democratic votes, but let the Senate go first, and then taking that measure, make deals in the House to get things through, or let them die.
We want to be fair and balanced. nuanced here, Robert. I don't want to be all negative.
I think that's another network.
That's another network. A related network.
Same family.
Same family. God bless you. But the president did have some initiatives yesterday that addressed mental health,
which is good.
And I wanted to get your take on those and highlight those to the listeners and the viewers. Why is that so important?
Well, I mean, I think it's important. I mean, I think, as the Journal's editorial page, I think, noted a couple of days ago, Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper, well, he's talking about gun restrictions. So he was saying the real key issue is mental health. Trying to track individuals, make sure there are tighter controls, preventing individuals from getting access to weapons, but it is very interesting, though, that a lot of individuals on the left who focus on gun control, the gun control side of it, are often hesitant to have more restrictions when it comes to incarceration of the mentally ill. As you know, here in New York, we've got a number of these cases involving just not even guns, with people roaming the streets and pushing people on the subway. Yeah. The mental health is probably the primary thing that everybody can, left and right, should be able to agree on.
Unfortunately, we've got to leave it at that. A lot of people crazy wandering around New York. Scary circumstance.
Well, yeah.
Thank you, Robert.
Some of them here.
Some of them pretty close to our building.
Yeah, exactly.
Robert George, New York Post editorial writer. Thanks for being with us.